Hi, good afternoon, and perhaps good morning to everybody who's joined us for the second installment of the Autodesk Software License Policy Changes to Education. The intent of this is to help clear up any questions, any misconceptions, and just really be here as a general resource to our education clients, both in the southeastern U.S. and across the country. So let me just kind of start by saying we've been an education reseller for a long, long time. And when Autodesk made the announcement, the first reaction was, well, this is really going to be great news for all of our customers. Not great news for us because, you know, a revenue source was going away, but a really great news for our customers. And then when the other shoe fell and Autodesk announced that essentially they were not renewing any of the contracts, which included use for internal campus use, we immediately mobilized, first with the schools that we knew very well in the southeastern U.S., so we'd had a long-standing relationship with, to really, help them understand what this was going to mean and really help them work toward a viable licensing solution for that would address the campus's needs over the long run. So we really started this in earnest back in probably August, September of last year when that second shoe fell, and Autodesk notified the schools that they would need to license the software for internal use. And we've been trying to reach as many universities and technical schools as possible to help them resolve these issues. And I think we've done a pretty good job. I see we've got actually a customer or two sitting on the call that we've been through this process, so they can keep me honest, if you will. And we've got one or two that we're currently working with on the call as well. So the intent of this is to really twofold. One is a question and answer for you. So if you've got any questions as we're going through, please type it into the chat. And we may end up stopping and answering the question then, or we may save them for the end, depending on if it's really relevant to what we're talking about at that particular time. And so we'll try to be real diligent about that. But the real intent is to walk through the process that we walk through with, and I'll drop a couple names, Georgia Tech, University of Florida. We're in the process with others that seem to work to result in the most cost-effective licensing model, licensing configuration for those universities. So I'd like to walk you all through that. And again, if you have any questions, please type them into the chat. And I've got Linda Netzer on the phone with me, and she'll address any of those. So what we basically did, and I'm sharing my screen now, so hopefully everybody can see my screen. Todd, can you confirm?
We can see it.
Okay, fantastic. So the first step that we took was, with everybody, was really identifying both a quantitative and doing a quantitative and qualitative analysis of the licenses. So what that means is that we highly recommend that either the university goes out and does an asset check using some software that they might already have, in their IT department to see what software is loaded on what machines. Okay, so that's the qualitative part of it. You can really identify across the board where software is installed. If you don't have the means to do that, we have the means to help you do that through an asset sniffing software package that we have. But again, most universities have it. It's pretty commonplace. So that's step number one. So you get this qualitative analysis or quantitative analysis of what's out there. The second piece, and probably even more important, is the qualitative part. And how we gather that information is sending out surveys to all of the folks within the campus, within the university or college or technical school that we suspect are using the software. And what we try to gather through that endeavor is the titles that they're using, as well as how often they're using the software. And so, that is really it's no more complicated than that. We have a survey that we have provided the school. Some people have wanted us to edit it a little bit, but the main purpose of that is to really gather the titles. And when I say titles, the software that you have had licensed under an education model enabled you and the users at the campus, on the campus in the university or school, to use a number of different titles. They might be using AutoCAD, they might be using AutoCAD Architecture, they might be using Revit, they might be using Navisworks, Inventor, what have you. So it's very likely that you're going to have, users of different types of software. And I'll hit on another issue later too, because Autodesk deemed everything as like a facilities usage, and I'll show you a little bit later an example of one of the schools that we went through this program in this process, and identifying actually 9 different departments within the campus, and that's not unusual that we're using the software. So you have to kind of look a little bit more broadly, and that's what both the the asset sniffing software allows you to do, as well as a survey. Okay, so that's the first step. Second step, and this I'm showing you a spreadsheet. This is just an example of a spreadsheet that we've used to capture that information, and nothing more. It's not magic. It's not science. It's really just kind of coming up with the average percent of time somebody's using the software. In this particular case, there were a lot of very heavy users, which is kind of unusual. We tend to find that there's folks on the campus are using it anywhere from hardly ever up to 100% of the time, but the average tends to be somewhere in the neighborhood of 50%. So once we gather that the information that you see here in this spreadsheet as an example, again, and this goes back to the role that they play. I've blacked out the names to protect the folks who were actually part of this, but the use and then the types of titles that they were using and how often they were using it. Me and my team go through and we do it's kind of a math equation, but we come up with a recommendation of the number of licenses that the university should consider licensing under a network license to serve the clients that they need to serve. Okay, so I don't expect you to look at this and make any sense of this, but this is where we do all those calculations. Okay, and down below here you'll see BDSS, BDSP, BDSU. I'll get to what that means here in a second. Those are license types. Those are suite types of licenses. Okay. So Linda,
hey,
I'll stop.
Mark, this is Linda.
Yes.
Yep, we do have a couple questions. I think you kind of skipped over the part where we need to explain about how what educational use is, and what is.
Oh, perfect. Okay. So yes, absolutely great question. And again, I'm probably making some assumptions because we've gone through this so many times. So education use. So all universities, all schools of any type, have the ability to now get free Autodesk software, either as an individual student or as the school that's teaching it, as long as the use of that software is for educational purposes. It cannot be used for any kind of commercial purposes at all. So for the most part, any classroom teaching of the software that was occurring before that was costing the university or school money is now free. Okay. Anything that is now used for internal purposes, for facilities, for housing, for safety, right down the line, that is not an educational use, not being used to teach, is now requires a license of some sort. And again, you have some options there, and that's part of what we're going to go through today is explain what those options are.
And a follow-up question about research.
Yeah, so research, this is where I kind of throw it back at the individual schools. Research not for profit would be considered educational use, but research that has a tie to profit or money that's coming in. So there is language that Autodesk has put out that really defines what research means from a free perspective, and I would highly encourage you to have somebody within the university. I know that a couple of our schools have had their legal departments take a look at it to see, whether or not they feel like they fall within, the free or not free bucket, if you will. So I can't make that determination, but the black and white is that if the research is not for profit or you're not receiving any funding for that research from an outside source, then it would in fact be free, the free versions. But if there is funding and it is for profit, and I've seen it go both ways. So that's really all I'll say. And we can send out that language to everybody that has registered for this. So I know not everybody that registered is going to be on this, but we're more than happy to share that with you. But I would highly encourage you to have somebody within the university make a call on that. Any other questions at this point, Linda? Okay, so I'll take that as a no. All right, so we've come up with the recommended number of licenses, and I mentioned network. Okay, so I'm going to maybe jump ahead a second, but now that I'm thinking about it, so the different types of licenses that are available to you or any other commercial customer are as follows. Number one, there is still a perpetual license model available from Autodesk. Although Autodesk is publicly talking right now and indicating to Wall Street and everybody else that at some point over the next year to 2 years, perpetual licensing model will go away. So they will not be taking those perpetual licenses away from anybody, but they will no longer be offering perpetual licenses. The interesting thing is, and it's not in every case, but right now it appears that a perpetual network license model works the best for universities because they have a significant number of users, but because they're using it on such a small, they're not all 100% users. A perpetual under a network license configuration makes the most sense. And what a network license configuration is, I'm sure some of you are reading ahead, but basically I'm licensing 20 copies of some suite or a AutoCAD license, and I'm able to serve those 20 licenses up to 50 people. Okay, not all at one time, so I'm licensing up to 20 at one time, but because the users are, again, infrequently using, for the most part, anywhere between probably 30 and 50% of the time, you're able to serve up a lot of people with fewer licenses. And again, that's what we work through with you to really kind of zero in on the right number of network licenses. And like I said, for the most part, that configuration has made the most sense to most of our customers. You can, in fact, do a perpetual license on a standalone, so that's really a one-to-one. A standalone license option is a little bit less expensive, but you're locked down to one particular computer. Multiple people can use that computer, but it's really only a one-to-one relationship computer to the user on that particular machine. And then the other model, and this is where some of the confusion I think has come in, is a desktop subscription model, which is also a one-to-one licensing model, but it is a term-based subscription, and it does have flexibility. It could be as short as a month or as long as a year, and you can actually do multiple-year subscription, desktop subscription models. But once again, it's a one-to-one ratio, so it's actually different than desktop version. It's actually a login. So if I've got Pete who needs a particular software type or a suite, then I'm licensing that for Pete. I'm paying for it on a monthly, quarterly, or annual basis. And when Pete uses the software, he logs in, and when he's done, he logs out, and nobody else can use that login. Okay, I haven't seen that work for any school yet, but not to say that it wouldn't work. Stepping back to the desktop subscription one more time, again, that is where Autodesk was offering this 90% discount, which did in fact expire. That offer expired at the end of January. What a lot of schools that we got started working with back in August, September of last year, and have concluded their license, really kind of looked at that as a Band-Aid. And when we did the cost analysis on it, which we would do for anybody that, if we end up working with you, we do the cost analysis to find out when the break-even point was. There are some advantages to desktop. I mean, you can, if you don't need the license anymore, you can stop paying for it, right? On a perpetual model, you pay a bigger upfront fee, you're paying lower annual fees, but if you stop paying subscription for it, you can also stop paying subscription, but once you stop paying subscription on that, you lose the license and you'd have to, again, license something again. So again, I don't want to get into a lot of detail, but we would work through all of these with you. I think we've done a really good job of listening and understanding and really putting the best model in place. So I'll stop there for a second and see if there's any questions that have popped up that we should be addressing right now. And
just a reminder, put it in the chat. We don't have any questions right now, but just to remind everybody, please put your questions in the question box.
The chat box, okay. And I like the fact I corrected the alone. It's not alone, it's alone. I'm sorry. I should have corrected that last time. So this gives you an example of some of the departments that are actually using the software. And I just put this up here to make sure that you understand, because when we first started with some of the schools, it was like everything was focused on facilities. And then when it really came down to it, there were a number of different departments, within this particular school that had license needs. And as you can see, research was one of those, right? So, going back to these acronyms down here, which I know don't mean much to you, but the BDSS, BDSP, BDSU, these are the recommended, and more times than not, the recommended suites that schools will be or should be considering under a network license model. So let me just start by saying the building design suite. Well, first of all, when we look at these, we look at a standard suite and a building design up to an ultimate suite. It basically includes more software as you move up the stack. So premium's got more than standard, and ultimate's got more than premium. Okay. What we've seen so far is a healthy mix of these two suites, because we have a lot of AutoCAD users. We have a fair amount of AutoCAD architecture users, but also we're seeing a trend in moving toward a Revit use. So we're seeing a healthy mix between these two. Sometimes it's heavier on the design suite standards, sometimes it's heavier on the premium, depending on how far along you are in your use of Revit and BIM and those things. Okay, we're seeing maybe one or two of these licenses, and the main need here to go to an ultimate license, I'm just being upfront, is Navisworks Manage. So if you have anybody that's doing any kind of model coordination, BIM-y type things, Navisworks Manage is a great tool. Also, you get Inventor as part of that. I don't know that it makes sense to license this suite in order to just get Inventor. Again, we'll work with you on that. All the analysis we'll do on the front end will help really show that. We're seeing fewer infrastructure licenses. Doesn't mean that it couldn't be higher, but this is really the civil package. And again, on the front end, on the small end, you've got AutoCAD, and then in Map 3D tend to be the two biggest items. Raster design tends to be out there as well, but then you move up the stack, and Civil 3D is part of the premium suite, and there are some universities that are using Civil 3D. So typically, what we're seeing is a mix of mostly building design suites and maybe one or two infrastructure design suites. Again, depending on the university and needs, we'll come up with the right mix. And then the other thing is that the nice thing about these suites is that if you have let's just stay on the standards, if you've got a building design suite standard, a user can draw from this license any of these license types. Okay, so if one day they're using AutoCAD and the next day they need AutoCAD architecture, they can use, they get basically both of those available to them. And one user can use all of these, right? If you just have a standalone license, just have an AutoCAD, well, that's all you have available out of that license. And once again, based on the infrequency, use, let's say average 50% use of each individual user on the campus on average, the suites really do tend to make up or actually make the most sense on a network license model. The one thing I do want to let you know is that like an Office, like the Office suite, Microsoft Office suite, you cannot serve up a license of AutoCAD out of one license, suite license, and an AutoCAD architecture to somebody else. Once that AutoCAD or AutoCAD architecture is checked out, you basically have locked out that license to anybody else. Once again, that person, though, can use any other product within that suite. Okay? All right. And I'm sure Linda will jump in.
Hey, Mark, we've got two great questions. And
Okay.
Randy, I'm gonna skip yours because it's better to go to this first one, and then we'll go to the second one. This person says they've purchased a large number of perpetual licenses for their teaching lab about 2 years ago, and they will need to re-image, parentheses, reformat these lab machines too. Will Autodesk continue to honor those perpetual licenses when I reinstall the software and reinitialize the licenses?
That's it. So are we talking? So these are all educational use, correct?
I'm not sure. But I mean, this is for a teaching lab, so we should assume that it's a that's
Yes.
teaching. Yes, educational. John says yes. Thank you, John.
Yeah. I'd like to take this offline. Not that I don't want to inform anybody. So let me kind of step back. So we've had some schools that have had an interest in just, they were in mid-school, mid-year. They don't want to mess anything up. They wanted to continue on with their current licenses. Maybe they've wanted to upgrade. We've worked with Autodesk, and we've got some, exceptions to that. This may be, in fact, that question. I think, though, ultimately, Autodesk wants everybody to move over to their new program, and I don't know as much about the new program on a how it works basis as I probably should. So it may. Let me just answer it maybe a little bit differently. Let's take it offline. But at the end of the day, you may be able to go ahead and just live with what you've got right now. The perpetual licenses still live. So let me answer that. The perpetual licenses still exist. The only caveat to that is that you cannot use any other version other than the version in which you were using when that perpetual license was not renewed. So if you were on release 14, I'm sorry, release 14, but yeah, the AutoCAD 14 or the a suite, everything was the 2014 version. You have to stay at that version. You can't go back and you can't go forward. Okay. But I'd really like to make sure that we understand, and this goes for everybody. If you have a specific question that we really kind of need to dig into a little bit, because this is what we're finding, and we don't know what we don't know, right? And there's things that pop up all the time and customer needs that we want to make sure that we understand and act as your advocate, back to Autodesk as well, to make sure they're showing ultimate flexibility. But you shouldn't be concerned about having to pay any more money for those educational use licenses. Those days are gone, right? It's just maybe a matter of how you're actually serving those up, or how that process works. So I'm sorry I was not maybe as helpful on that one. Is the second question maybe, or if there's a follow-up to that one?
Well, there's another question, and it kind of goes to, I know what you're planning on talking about, and this person says that they've been paying an annual subscription fee for 2 seats, and they want to know the best way to proceed forward. And really, that's why we're here today, so I'm going to let you take it.
So if there were an annual subscription fee for a commercial license, then you would just proceed on paying that annual subscription fee. And we've had, we probably have had 10 to 15% of our the schools we reached out to have actually had commercial licenses. So if in fact you had a commercial license and you were paying annual subscription maintenance on that, then you would just keep proceeding paying that annual subscription maintenance. If it was an education license of some sort that was under the education AER, Autodesk Education banner, then you would in fact be in a position where you'd have to, if you had internal commercial use of that software, you'd have to relicense that. So once again, I encourage you to let Linda know. Just obviously she knows who you are. I think we've got your email address, so we can reach back out to you and address any of these individually. Any other questions at this juncture? Okay.
Nope. But
okay.
John said thank you. He understands the process better now. So keep going.
Okay.
You're on.
Well, I'm glad he does. I'm not sure that I do after going through that. But thank you, John. Again, we want to make sure we're following up afterwards. So. So the primary benefits of Autodesk subscription, again, we didn't want to take anything for granted. We started throwing things around. Our customers go, what the heck do you mean? So basically, I don't want to go through this in any kind of gory detail, but the primary benefits of being on subscription, and once again, you would pay if you were on perpetual licenses or whether you're on a desktop term license, you would be under a subscription model in both cases. And under a subscription model, you get obviously predictable budgeting, but more importantly, you get product upgrades. So if I'm paying your annual maintenance subscription on the licenses that you put in play every year, or if Autodesk decides to do something more frequently than a year, which very well may start happening, you would get those upgrades without any additional charge. You would get the ability to upgrade that license to another version. So one of the things that many of our current folks we're working with or have worked with would consider or were considering for the future is starting at a building design suite standard as an example, but as they move more to using Revit over the coming years, you can upgrade a current license. So if you're paying subscription and current on subscription, you can upgrade for a nominal fee from going from a standard license to a premium license and a premium license to an ultimate license as an example. Okay, then this is new because Autodesk for a long time allowed you to take older versions of software that was not under subscription and essentially trade that in at a value. That program was discontinued the first of this month. So there's no longer any value. So they're really obviously putting everybody in a position where staying on subscription is really the smart thing. You do get previous license rights. You can use 3 years previous version from the current release. You get home use rights, so folks that can actually use that on a home computer as long as they are employed by the university. They can have you have the ability to check those licenses out and use those at home up to the number of licenses that you have. Also extended territory rights if you have people traveling out of the country. Technical supports, you get unlimited online and web support. And then there are some cloud services available. Okay. So after we've done all that, we've come up with a a first pass and then ultimately a final configuration. And this just gives you some idea. And again, I've just put SRP prices in here. And again, I'm not trying to scare anybody. I just want to show you that this particular customer had a mix of 10 building design suite standards, 28 building design suite premiums, one of the infrastructure design suite premiums, which I said was Civil 3D, and then it made most sense to do a infrastructure design suite ultimate that had the Navisworks Manage in it. That was the most cost-effective and economical way to go. And again, this is just the legend down here, but there's not a lot of detail, but that's what we put together. And then typically there's a few back and forth, people going back and double checking. Okay, here's what the price is. We really don't want one. Okay, if it's only that, they'll give us one more. And so we just go back and forth a few times and come up with a final configuration. I didn't include anything here, but we will do a perpetual versus a term pricing comparison. I will tell you, the more users you have that are 100% users versus part-time users, which isn't going to be very common in most universities, but could be, maybe the more you might lean toward a desktop subscription model. But I can tell you that in all the analysis we've done, so far for every school, it really has made more sense to go under a perpetual network model. Okay. So finally, a mechanism that not every school can or has chosen to work through. We can either do these licenses through the normal commercial mode, which, and again, we really work with you, figure out what your approval processes are. Does it have to go to bid based on the once we get to the final pricing? Does it have to go to bid? Does it not have to go to bid? How are you going to come up with the funding? Most schools are having each one of the departments pitch in to come up with the final number, to come up with the final amount required for the contract, but then everything is under one contract and served up typically from one server. But we also have the mechanism which some schools have elected to utilize, and that is a GSA contract that is actually a Autodesk GSA contract, but the holder for that is a company called DLT. We've been doing business with DLT for as long as DLT has been around, so decades, and maybe not decades, but a long, long time. And most of, if not all, of our federal and state and local business flow through DLT because it is a GSA contract, so it allows, and I'm not saying for each one of your schools, but if you can buy off a GSA contract, it could eliminate the need to go through all of the procurement, typical, putting things out to bid and all of that. And so we're happy. This is the contract number. We're happy to provide each and every one of you a letter that states in more detail what DLT's relationship is with Autodesk. And again, not every school is able to purchase off a GSA contract. We know that some of the schools in Georgia cannot, and maybe none of them can. Down in Florida, they were actually able to use the GSA contract through DLT and go that route. So that is really about it. Some of the questions that come up, that's really our job, is to just field any questions, and again, we want you to know that we're here more than just for this particular PowerPoint presentation and webinar. We want to make sure that you know that we're available to answer any questions specific to your requirements. And with that, I'll see if there's any other questions.
There are not any additional questions, but please feel free to chat us up. And also, I just put in the chat box a link to get the free software. So if after this discussion you have decided that you are using your software for educational use, you definitely want to click on the Academic Resource Center at Autodesk.com. That's how you access your free licenses. So that's where you're going to go. And Mark, do you want to give some follow-up information about who to contact if they've got more questions?
Yeah, do I have, you know what? I just want to see if I actually, I forgot to create a, Todd, let's do this. So everybody, that registered, I see we have about 21 folks who are in attendance, but let's make sure that we send a follow-up email with Dave Moore's contact information to be a point of contact to follow up. And Dave used to work for DLT. Dave has been working with us for about 6 years now, and he'd be a great first point of contact. And again, we don't want you to just feel like you're left out there alone. I think that's one of the reasons why we decided to do these webinars, because if you want to engage us and you want us to walk through this process with you, we're absolutely more than happy to do that. We're not going to push ourselves on you, but we certainly want you to know that we're here, and know if we don't have the answer, we'll find it for you. And if we need to push Autodesk together, in a good and kind way, to show some flexibility in certain areas, we're willing to do that as well.
All right, Mark, we did have a couple questions popped up.
Okay.
One person asked about how they can access previous versions. I think that's right, Randy. He says access to old subscription products, but I'm thinking he's meaning previous versions.
Yeah, so I don't know all the technical ins and outs. I couldn't tell you where to go to, but in your subscription, so essentially, when your contract goes into place, one of the things that we do for you is walk through, and I think they're changing the name on this, but Subscription Center. And the Subscription Center, or whatever they're changing the name to, in their new and improved space, is where you will be able to manage all of your licenses and download your licenses from. So it will be through Subscription Center that you will do that. And one of the things that we are doing for and offering up, and everybody's taking advantage of it because it's all new, is walking you through that process. And we have somebody who's been doing this, for 25 years, for us, walk you through that process and how to manage your licenses and how to get the licenses, older versions in this case that you'd be wanting to download.
All right, we've got another question here. Are the suite comparisons that you are showing only for commercial use or for educational use as well? It's a great question.
Oh, that is a great question. Well, let me answer differently. So these licenses are commercial. So the licenses that we showed, and I'll pull it back up. These are commercial licenses. But the way I'm going to answer that is that education users can use any software under the Autodesk sun. Okay, so the sky is the limit. Anything on here and licenses and license types that are not on these two lists, they can have access to. I mean, that was Carl Bass's idea, was to enable every student that wanted, every educator that wanted to teach it, access to all the software that Autodesk had. So, but these are these are the bundles that have been the commercial bundles that 98% of our clients have. Most of our commercial clients, with the exception of a few, and a lot of AutoCAD licenses still out there, standalone, but most of our customers now have either a particularly using it the way you guys would use it, a Building Design Suite standard or a Building Design Suite premium, or Infrastructure Design Suite standard. Mostly Infrastructure Design Suite premiums because of Civil 3D. So I hope that answered the question. There's no limitations to what a student can use. A student or an
All right,
educator.
I have no. Right, a student or an educator. That's right, and that's what's really exciting about this. If you are a student, if you are serving students, you can get any of this software for free, and as an educator, we can help you get trained on these titles if that's something that you're interested in. I don't have any other questions, Mark, but we will be providing you the information presented here. If you registered for the webinar, you'll be receiving this information.
You're receiving this information, and like I said, please feel free to reach out. Most importantly, I want you all to know that you're not out there alone. You got somebody who can help you. I think we've hopefully done a real good job of serving the customers that we've had a chance to serve so far and are continuing to serve, and we want to be there for all of you. So with that, I guess we will wrap it, and thank you for your time.